All right, so we're going to talk about how to make graphs in Excel, but I like to also have these videos so that you can come back and reference this because you might miss an important detail. So anyway, so here's just another record of that. All right, so what I've done is I've randomly selected some leaf area data between the sun using the leaf area app and some data using the leaf area grid. So you can see that I have my 10 sun leaves here, my 10 shade leaves here. I've calculated the average of each of those. I've also calculated the standard error. Okay, the standard error is what we want to have our error bars be. So when you make your graph, right? So we're going to select this. We're going to hit insert, and we're going to place our graph in here. We only need one. So now you're like, oh, I'm not done. I need to put error bars in because that's what my instructor told me to do. So you look here and you're like, hey, look, Excel's helping me. Thanks. Thanks, Microsoft. Microsoft's not helping you. Okay, so we need to adjust some things. So when we look in here, I double clicked on these error bars and it brought up this format panel over here. What we're seeing is it's like, okay, so we can select a different amount for our error bars to be, but what we want is the calculated standard error, not any of these other things. So you see standard error here and you're like, yes, that's the one for me. No, it's not. More complicated than that because of course it is. Okay, so we're going to go here to custom. We're going to select custom, and then we need to select this thing that says specify value. Okay, so we're going to click on that. It pops open this little window right here. What this is going to allow me to do, get rid of that, is select the values. So I'm going to click and drag. And so I collected both those cells that have the standard error that I actually calculated, right? And so that part is telling me what is the positive part of my error bar. All right, so here's the top of the bar represents our average, and this is the average plus our error. Okay, so I've selected those that standard error that we've collected. Now I need to go down here, get rid of that negative error value, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to click and drag and get both of those in that same amount. Here's an important thing is that you need to make sure that your standard error is in the same order as your averages. Okay, so if we had a whole bunch of different things here, we might get the order wrong and then we would be messing up our standard error. So I always like my average and my standard error to be neighbors, and then that way I don't mess it up. Okay, so let's hit OK and see what happens. Now our error bars have adjusted size. Let me make that color a color that you can see. We'll make it this kind of light green color. Okay, so you can see that our standard error bars are the same size. Before we did all of this other nonsense, they were the same size, but that's not what we want it to do. We want it to be the calculated standard error. Okay, so is my graph done? My graph is not done. Okay, so what I need to do is I need to come back here. So click on that, click on the little plus sign that's going to pull up this menu of chart elements. I need some axis titles. Okay, so on the y-axis, remember that this is typically where our response variable goes. So this is our leaf area. And in parentheses, I'm going to put centimeters squared. Now I can get fiddly with that too, with the formatting, but I don't want to. I don't care right now. Okay, on the x-axis, that's where our independent variable goes, the thing that we're testing. And in this case, we're testing the differences between the sun leaves and the shade leaves. So I'm going to put leaves with differing sun exposure. Okay. All right. And then the last thing that I need to do as far as required formatting goes is I need to tell my reader what the takeaway of this graph is here in the graph title. So in this case, these data are telling me, remember that these data are randomly generated, so they might not actually be reflective of what happens in reality. But according to these data, our sun leaves have higher surface area than shade leaves. Okay, so now I can play around with this and decide if I want to change any of these other like little formatting things. I want my font to be legible and on a PowerPoint. So, ooh, that's ugly, but that's okay. I can fix it because I'm just going to grab the corners and increase that size. Maybe I want this to pop out a little bit better. So I'm going to give my bars an outline. Okay. So, you can kind of see how that's how you're going to create your graphs and play around with the formatting of them and make it look like how you want them to look.